This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
The matchup is now finally set for Super Bowl 59 as we have got a rematch between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Today, we're going to break down my thoughts on that matchup, taking a first look at the spread and the total over at FanDuel Sportsbook, letting you know where I see value, whether I want to actually take that value, and my initial thoughts on this game for Super Bowl 59. Welcome on into Covering the Spread. That's right here on FanDuel Research and FanDuel.com/research. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, here to take my first look at Super Bowl 59 between the Chiefs and the Eagles, breaking down my thoughts on the spread and the total and initial bets I do or potentially don't want to snag over at FanDuel Sportsbook. We'll dive into all that here, taking a look at what my model says in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Pretty light week for this week, but next week we're going to have 5 shows for you breaking down this Super Bowl from every single angle, talking exotic props, talking player props, baseline bets, and so much more. So to get those shows as they're posted, make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review. And again, check out the YouTube page as well. Still gonna have a lot of stuff there again next week. FanDuel football betting, talking about that. DFS show next week too. So a lot of good stuff still to come here on the YouTube page, also throughout the offseason. So go there, turn on notifications to get notified as we go live, both this week, next week, and throughout the offseason. The FanDuel Kick of Destiny is back, and this time it's every Manning for himself. This Super Bowl, 2 legends will take the field in a sudden death field goal showdown, Peyton versus Eli, live from New Orleans. 1 kick to claim ultimate family bragging rights. Who will rise to the moment? Pick your winner now in the FanDuel app. If you back the right brother, you'll earn a share of $10 million in bonus bets. It's the FanDuel Kick of Destiny 3. Make your free pick, and don't forget to tune in to watch the showdown live during the Super Bowl 59 pregame show on Fox, 3 p.m. Eastern. Again, 3 p.m. Eastern on Super Bowl Sunday. May the best Manning win. FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. No purchase necessary. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chat Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit Gambling Helpline ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-OPEN-Y or text OPEN-Y in New York. All right, let's dig in now to Super Bowl 59, taking a look at the initial betting odds at FanDuel Sportsbook, where the Chiefs are slim favorites. They are favored by 1.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Their money line out to -132. The Eagles money line +112. Total in this game is at 49.5. I will spoil the total immediately. I am directly in line with this total. I could not be closer. 59.51 is where I've got it. So if I want to bet this total, I've got to make some assumptions. I've got to wait for some movement, but at the baseline, 49.5, I'm not going to have any action there. So likely to stay away from me on the total. I do show value in the Eagles to win this game because my model actually makes the Eagles slight favorites by 0.6 points. And I want to explain the why there and what I'm doing with that information in just 1 second. But first, let's begin things with why my model has the Eagles favored. It comes down mostly to the defense for the Eagles, who has been phenomenal this year. They gave Jaden Daniels, for the first time basically all year, some fits in yesterday's game as well. And the Chiefs defense has been very good too, especially once you lop off week 18, which you should do when looking at the Chiefs data. But even when you look there, the Eagles are first by a pretty wide margin defensively, whereas the Chiefs are more of an above average defense. And defense does not get a large portion of my model. It's actually a pretty small portion. But when you have 2 offenses that can do what they did on Sunday, defense does matter at that point. And once you factor that in, I do have an edge towards the Eagles in this game. So I do show value in the Eagles money line plus 112 to win Super Bowl 59 against the Chiefs at FanDuel Sportsbook. With that said, I'm not inclined to take that right now. And there are a couple reasons for doing so. The first one is because I don't think I need to. Actually, we've got 2 weeks until Super Bowl 59, which means we're going to see these betting markets evolve and stuff like that. When this market first went up at FanDuel last night, it was a plus 106. And then it lengthened out to plus 110, and it's now plus 112. So we've seen more movement towards the Chiefs as the day has gone along. And I don't think we're going to see a ton of pushback on the Eagles side of things. I think we'll stay pretty steady around plus 112, plus 110, somewhere in that range. So if you look at this matchup and say, I want to bet the Eagles at some point, which is what my model is saying to do, I'd hold off. I think there is a decent chance you can get a better number somewhere down the line. People seem to be fully bought in on the Chiefs. They were the team we saw more recently dominate as they played very well offensively against the Bills. So I think if you want to bet the Eagles, I would hold off. I think that you can potentially get a better number at some point down the line. So I would hold firm right now at plus 112, potentially digging in later on, as we get some more information. I want to see some info on Saquon Barkley's health, honestly. Want to see some info on the Eagles offensive line because that could ding them too. But for right now, I think if you want to bet the Eagles, I'd hold off. I think that you may be able to get a better number later on. Conversely, if you want to bet the Chiefs, I would do so now because minus 115 to cover a 1.5 spread, I think that sounds about right. Now, beyond just thinking I can get a better number later down the line, the other reason I think I might want to hold off on backing the Eagles, despite the fact my model says to do so, is that there's a chance my model is undervaluing the Chiefs. And it's not just playoff Pat Mahomes boogeyman nonsense. It's also the smaller you make the sample, the better the Chiefs look. And again, it's not just the playoffs either. Specifically, I want to look at the 4-game sample that Hollywood Brown has played. And it's not like Hollywood Brown is the best receiver in football or anything like that. He's not even playing every single down. But what he does is he gives the Chiefs 4 legitimate, actual NFL caliber pass catchers, which is something they haven't really had all year. That is Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and DeAndre Hopkins. And also, frankly, Juju Smith-Schuster, based on what he showed in the conference championship as well. So if I were to look at just the 4-game sample where Hollywood Brown has played and just copy paste the Chiefs efficiency from those 4 games, my model had the Chiefs favored by 2.7 with the total at 52.8. So that's part of why I'm hesitant to back the Eagles right now is what if the Chiefs are actually as good as they played in that 4-game sample? Now, again, I told you my model is Chiefs favored or the Eagles favored by 0.6. I'm not taking this, and I'm not anywhere near the 2.7. That's because I can't make my model based on just a 4-game sample. If I were to do so, I'd lose a lot of money. So I've got to regress that number back to earth because they've been kind of other human in this time. So if I regress that number back towards earth and take a larger sample, looking specifically at the Chiefs from week 8 on, omitting week 18, that's where I come up with this number of the Eagles favored by 0.6 points. It's 0.55 technically, but around that range. I do think, though, there is a scenario where the Chiefs continue. Their actual baseline expectation for offense is what they've done in that Hollywood Brown sample. And that's why I'm hesitant to back the Eagles at plus 112, despite the fact my model shows value. Because again, there is a reason this has happened. We got half of that sample is playoff Patrick Mahomes, who's a psychopath with his legs. He's been, I think he looked awesome as a passer last night too. And they've got Joe Tooney figured out at left tackle. They've gotten some things ironed out that do make this a bit more believable. So again, the 2 reasons why I'm not rushing to back the Eagles right now are that there is a chance my model's undervaluing the Chiefs, not just because of the playoff nonsense, but also because they've been a really good offense with Hollywood Brown in the mix, but also because I think if I do want to bet the Eagles, I can potentially do so later on. I do want to keep that number I mentioned with Hollywood Brown in mind, with the Chiefs favored by 2.7, total of 52.8, because I can make some down the line same game parlays where I assume the Chiefs are as good as they were in the sample. I'm more willing to do that for a same game parlay than I am for a straight bet because I can make an assumption. I can take some more risks in those scenarios, and it does set up well for that. So I do want to keep those numbers in mind where the Chiefs are a really good team. If I were to look at just the sample, looking at the over, looking at laying the points of the Chiefs in those scenarios. So I do want to keep that number in mind and use it for those assumption-based bets. But for a straight bet, I got to go based on my numbers. My numbers say can't quite bet the Chiefs there, but also hesitant to bet the Eagles despite that. Couple of things that stand out to me when I first look at this matchup, not just from like a betting perspective, but also from like a football perspective. This Eagles defense is really well set up to stop a team that has phenomenal outside wide receivers, phenomenal receivers in general. They've got Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Darius Slay. All these guys are really good, and they can lock down wide receivers on the outside. So if you've got a team, like if they're facing the Eagles, they're facing A.J. Brown, facing Devontae Smith, they'd be well equipped to handle that kind of team. That's not really the Chiefs' strengths. They can do this weird stuff with Mahomes, the runner. They've got Travis Kelce, who should match up pretty well with them unless they decide to stick a corner on him too. And they've got this weird kind of gadgety type stuff with Xavier Worthy too that can put linebackers in chaos. And that's kind of the game plan we saw out of the Commanders before that game got out of hand was a boatload of Zach Ertz, some John Bates in the mix, Ben Sinnott on that fake punt too. So we saw the Eagles or the Commanders try to take advantage of the fact that the Eagles' weakest point is their linebackers. And this Chiefs team actually does line up pretty well for that. So I want to keep that in mind too. Stylistically, the area the Eagles are probably at their worst is with their linebacker play, which bodes well for running back props, whether it be running backs as pass catchers or potentially with the tight ends as well. So I think we'll be talking potentially some Noah Gray stuff at some point down the line. His yardage prop is 12.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook right now. Kind of wishy-washy on that. Isaiah Pacheco did have a nice catch late in the game. In this one, his receiving yardage prop is at 4.5. I think these are the areas we'll be looking at as far as a matchup perspective with the Chiefs offense facing the Eagles defense. One final thing that kind of makes me hesitant to back the Eagles, again, despite the fact my model shows value, is that the Chiefs rush defense has been pretty good. I know we've had some times where they've gotten bullied a bit, but they have been solid overall. And again, I think Saquon Barkley might be kind of banged up. Looking at in that conference championship game, you saw after his long touchdown run, he was getting like some treatment on the sidelines. They were using that weird massage gun on his calf. And they had Kenneth Gainwell in there for the following series. Kenneth Gainwell eventually did get concussed and could not come back in the game, which left it as basically Saquon Barkley and Will Shipley. They had decided to play Saquon Barkley more in the second half as a result. But once they were grinding clock, they were doing sweeps to Dallas Goedert. They were doing a lot of weird stuff, frankly, and I think it was to reduce the load on Saquon Barkley, whether it's because he was hurt or just trying to maintain his workload to keep him fresh for the Super Bowl. I'm not really sure, but it did grab my attention. And again, this Chiefs team overall has been good at stopping the rush. So we could get a big A.J. Brown game or a big Devontae Smith game, but again, I think that this Chiefs team just kind of matches up well with the Eagles, both on offense and on defense. Offense matching up well with the linebackers, on defense being decently well equipped to stop, better equipped than most teams to stop Saquon Barkley. I want to phrase that very, very purposefully because no team can truly stop Saquon Barkley, but they're better able to contain him, maybe better able to stop those long rushes than the other teams may be. So when I look at this game from a numbers perspective, it says bet the Eagles. And I'm receptive to that. And I may do that if we see betting markets continue to trend toward the Chiefs here. If I can get a better number on the Eagles and overcome these matchup-based concerns, I'll be willing to do it at that time. But I'm not quite there yet because from a numbers perspective, it says Eagles. From a matchup perspective, I think things lean a bit towards the Chiefs. And from the perspective of if I'm undervaluing one team in this game, that's probably going to be Kansas City based on the Hollywood Brown data that I've seen and based on the matchups. So it's boring to say I got nothing as far as bets in this game for right now, but I do think that is a proper way to play things. We're going to talk about some player props. We're going to talk about exotic props. We're going to talk through all different angles, same game parlays for this game next week. We're going to break down all those angles and I will find some action there. But honestly, as boring as it may be, I'm going to sit this one out for right now because I do think that the betting markets are pretty efficient for this game. I am, again, dead in line at the total of 49.5. So for me, the action for Super Bowl 59 will come next week in the form of props, same game parlays, and stuff like that, because I think that is the better route for betting this game. That's all that we have for now for this first look at Super Bowl 59, breaking down my thoughts on the spread and total for this game. But as I said, we're going to have a full schedule for you next week, talking about every single angle for betting this game. We're going to break that down across the entirety of next week. 5 shows next week, 6 if you count the DFS show on the YouTube page, breaking down my thoughts on Super Bowl 59. So to get those shows as they're posted, subscribe to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast, but also check us out on the YouTube page. Turn on notifications there to get notified as we go live, which we'll be doing plenty next week to get you set for this very fun matchup. Until then, if you got any questions for me, I am on both X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Want to give a big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work in the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Enjoy this little break before Super Bowl. If you want to watch the Pro Bowl, go ahead, have at it. More power to you, but I will not be joining you in that endeavor for sure. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.